I believe that the Forsaken development team has a massive cultural problem. While ex-owner Soul Driven Love was in charge, the Forsaken team defended and silenced victims that came forward with testimonies against Soul. Even after Soul's departure, the team has shown signs of attachment to him. This is only made worse by the fact that 25% of the game's profits go towards someone like Soul. They want you to believe that this is an unfortunate inevitability, but I am afraid that's not the case. For the last year now, the team has shown no sign of wanting to distance themselves from their previous friend, Soul Driven Love. This is a documentation of their actions. Quick disclaimer, my opinions are my own and do not represent any opinions coming from any of my employers and or associates. Secondly, do not harass anyone mentioned in this video. I also want to make it perfectly clear that this is not a drama video. I am not here to start insulting people. I am here because there's a problem that should be talked about. Finally, I want to make it perfectly clear that I do not care if you play Forsaken. I also do not want to shame anyone who works on Forsaken. My criticisms are purely directed at bad actors and the leadership of Forsaken. There's a lot of people in the team who showed their unconditional love for Soul in multiple occasions. This includes both Forsaken owner Basil and Hitoko. In March, when the first wave of accusations started to come out, some developers came out to defend Soul. Hitoko admits to having to play PR for Forsaken, starts bringing stuff up that the accusers did to discredit them, and calls the document malicious. In the same thread, Hitoko says the following, and I'm just going to read this entire tweet. I know of Soul's actions. She can tell you firsthand I experienced a decent chunk of them. She's a piece of shit. But I've been watching her change and grow with time. She has openly discussed her faults and has been trying to get better herself. So you knew. The next day, Hitoko released another thread defending Soul's actions. He then starts to blame people, either victims or critics, for putting people in the hospital and making people feel unsafe, etc. and etc. He had all the documents and evidence of wrongdoings. He addressed them and decided to side with Soul. Not just that, he also silenced the victims by attacking them. This is not just Hitoko though. Here's Basil, administrator, siding with Soul. Here's Montagne, another dev at the time, also repeating the same point about malicious intent. There was a serious issue with the work culture in the Forsaken development team if they all unanimously decided to side with Soul, despite the countless victims' testimonies. The developers were all yes men to Soul, accepting these wrongdoings. I understand not wanting to speak against the person who pays you, but going on social media to defend him is a whole other thing. I seriously do not understand how you could in your right mind side with Soul after so many countless testimonies when knowing that they were true. Here's a testimony that was sent to me from a victim. The doc was disregarded by their fans. I was ridiculed for posting it at the wrong time and was being berated with people telling me that it should have stayed in private. There are multiple points in the doc as to why that wasn't an option. Had these people actually read it, they'd know that. Later that day, I caved and decided to talk to Soul privately. I was already under extreme mental stress by then, having at that point received multiple death threats, people insulting myself, my work, my girlfriend, etc. In May, there was a new video that dropped which compiled the same accusations made in March. This is the video that made Soul step down. Hitoko's first reaction to being sent the video was to block the person who sent it to him. He states that the account was actually blocked before the video had come out. Then why is there a tweet still up on the account, quote, retweeting you with the video? What kind of culture does Forsaken have where people are so against hearing anything negative about Soul? How did it get to this point? When Soul Driven Love decided to step down, Hitoko and Basil immediately turned on him. They say that their first reaction after watching the video is that they cannot defend this. At least that's what they want us to believe. Here's a conversation of Hitoko talking to Soul after his removal, trying to make amends with him. Here, he admits to publicly denounce Soul to twist the public perception. So when Hitoko was denouncing Soul, he was lying. He then says that he put his heart and everything into defending him. After him and Basil became owners, they continued this weird pattern of tolerating him. Here's Hitoko the week that Soul stepped down discussing the possibility of helping Soul financially. This was before any legal obligations. This was just out of the pureness of his heart. When challenged, he immediately backtracked. It's crazy to me that he even considered it acceptable to publicly admit that he wanted to continue to give Sol money. When it was revealed in September that he was still giving Sol money, people brought up the tweet of him backtracking and saying that he wouldn't pay Sol anything. He states that he was just being hopeful about not having to pay Sol. Let's not pretend like this was your intention all along. You admitted to wanting to give Sol money. You only started lying about it after people rightfully started to call you out about it. Here's a screenshot of Hitoko giving Sol credit for helping them keep the game. He also says that Sol has a lot to say. This was a month after he stepped down. When confronted about it, Hitoko decided to double down, saying that Sol has the team's best interest. Now, I am going to be honest with you. I am mainly targeting Hitoko in this video because he seems to be the most open about all of this. He also says, quote, "If you're gonna hate anybody, hate me." But whatever. Here's another owner, Basil, doubling down on criticisms of a tweet where she posted about Sol's generosity. She claims that Sol's charitable donations are not something we can just brush off or ignore. Then there's a guy called Kaiser, who to this day continues to run public relations for Sol-driven love. He's contacting members of the Forsaken community to get them to talk to Sol. He was there when Sol made a Discord server to defend himself. On Sol's recent document, he thanks Kaiser for sticking by my side these past 6 years. He doesn't even hide it. This person earns 4% of all of Forsaken's profits. Here's a screenshot of Basil's response. In here, she mentions that 1, she doesn't care if her employees talk to Sol, and 2, implies that there are a lot more people actively in contact with Sol. Here's another person, Andrew, earning 2% of the game's profits. This guy Andrew is listed in one of the testimonies of aiding Sol to create the pornographic mod of an underage person. He even admits to it, trying to justify it by claiming he thought the victim was a bad person. Hitoko claims that we want nothing to do with Sol and people like Parrot who continue or associate with them. That's a lie. But here's another lie. On May, after Sol stepped down, Hitoko and Basil claimed that the profits from a plushie campaign were being held, and that Sol and Eva would not receive any money, and that this will give them an opportunity to renegotiate the legality of the plushie split. In October, Hitoko admits that the money did not go to Eva, Sol's girlfriend. He says that this was the original deal for the plushie that was made before Sol and Eva left the game. But we saw that in May, they had a chance to renegotiate the split. Does that mean that even when given the chance to not pay Eva, they decided to let her keep profits? When the news of 25% of the game's revenue being sent to Sol spread, I was not surprised. I already discussed Hitoko's messages from May about giving Sol money, but he continues to mislead people all the way until September, the month he was caught. He even has the courage to say, if Sol was involved at all, the entire team would have left. Yeah. This is also not the first time an owner of Forsaken has talked about leaving the game if Sol was involved. And here's a similar statement about ditching Forsaken if things didn't go the way we wanted. In this statement, she even talks about the dev team being fully prepared to just jump ship if things went bad. The two owners act with this righteousness of putting values over money and being brave and standing against Sol by quitting. But as soon as payments become public, then suddenly there's conversations about, our jobs have been at stake. It's bullshit. It's just bullshit. He wants people to sympathize with them and tries to normalize the 25%. That's just how these kinds of transactions go. And it worked. Despite the release percentage cuts, a large portion of the community still supports Hitoko. They see him as a victim, a person who was in the wrong place and wrong time and now has to suffer. I don't think it's normal to pretend like someone earning an unfathomable amount of money after months of siding with an abuser is the victim in this situation. Hitoko likes to argue that there is nothing that could have been done about the money that goes to Sol, and it seems like a lot of the community believes him. I need to remind you all that Soul no longer owns Forsaken. He only profits from it. But the owner of Forsaken is Hitoko and Basil. They own all the game assets, including maps, characters, musics, etc. If they wanted to stop paying Soul, all they would have to do is move to another game. Hitoko claims that this is legal loophole hell, which is not true. This was confirmed to me by Hitoko himself. To me, it's incredible they would not even begin to consider to move the game. Hitoko stated that they plan to do nothing about the percentage. I don't see this urgency to stop paying Soul almost as if it was not a big deal. The reason Hitoko cited for not wanting to move Forsaken is the fear of uncertainty, which to me is ridiculous. He talks about money, how a move would confuse the Roblox algorithm and kill the game's momentum. I think this is a valid concern if you're a small game, but this is Forsaken. We're talking about Forsaken. This game, when it updates, breaks records. Forsaken is not a one-hit wonder or a game that will struggle to find its footing. And also, may I remind you all that there's a 44% tax on every purchase that Forsaken makes that goes to people that have zero involvement in the game. Let me pull all the ethical dilemmas aside of paying Soul. Why would you just stand there getting 44% of your money taken? The US Revolution started after a 3% tax. You're automatically making 44% more money for every purchase by simply sunsetting the current Forsaken game. This is money that can go to your employees. Hell, it's money that can go to you. How tight are you on Soul shackles that you would not want to do this? Your employees talk about being underpaid, and you refuse to even consider to take back what belongs to the game. What do you even do as a leader? You said that the entire team would leave if Soul was involved. Then why aren't you leaving? Your jobs do not have to be threatened. Lumion Legacy was able to survive a rebrand. Your game is 3 times the size of Lumion Legacy despite being around for a year. You know, after all the history of you defending Soul, hiding information, and not taking accusations seriously, how do you expect me to believe you when you say this was the only way? Quite frank with you, I think the entire Forsaken team is compromised. Forsaken doesn't behave like a serious company. There needs to be a serious re-evaluation from top to bottom about how it was ever able to get this bad. From a history of supporting Soul and attacking victims to a complete refusal to do anything about Soul's cut, I seriously do not understand how any of this behavior was or continues to be acceptable. I don't invite anyone in the Forsaken team to respond to this video. I invite them to stop pretending like there isn't a problem.